formation of the Australian property lobby
Mm.
in the 90s, which they really got organized in response to the sudden emergence of Pauline Hanson. And people who are younger and don't really know about that time, Hanson was a nobody that burst onto the scene in 1996, and just simply because she was just some random fish and chip shop lady that was pre-selected for the Liberals in a seat they didn't expect to win, who came out and started talking about the problems with Aboriginals and with immigrants. And the media went ballistic against her. The Liberal Party removed their endorsement. She ran as an independent and won. The people were behind her. And then all of a sudden, this One Nation party infrastructure was just kind of smashed together through different elements very quickly and rapidly. And because it was kind of put together by grifters and inexperienced political figures, including Hanson herself, it didn't have any staying power. It was a total disaster, and it fell apart as quickly as it was put together. But in the Queensland election, I believe in 1990, was it 96 or 98, they did get like a quarter of the vote, which is insane for some brand new political party, obviously. So it showed the appetite in the electorate. There was a study done in, I think, in 1994 on immigration, and what they found was that 71% of Australians wanted radical reductions to immigration. So immigration was wildly unpopular, and no one was giving the people a voice. And then even this awkward, politically inexperienced gaff machine woman comes on the scene and just makes a few noises in the right direction and becomes a political force that shakes the foundations of Australian politics for the subsequent decade. So that shows how, the sentiments in the the general Australian population was still relatively racially conscious despite everything, even in the 90s. And I think we should look at that with it's tragic in many respects at how much of a missed opportunity it was and how poorly handled it was and how we've inherited basically nothing almost from the people who were involved back then. But it should also be a cause for some optimism because of how quickly it was able to kind of shoot up in political relevance, that if it could be replicated with better organization, that who knows what could happen. But in those days, Australia was still over 90% white. And even the Australia that I grew up in, I was born in 1995, when I was a young child in the 2000s, the areas in where I grew up and lived and so on, pretty much everyone was white. It was kind of strange to see a non-white person, even though I lived in suburban Melbourne and suburban Sydney. And then gradually the floodgates open, and there's about 20 million white people in Australia today, but there's about 7 million non-whites in Australia, more or less. And thankfully, I think less than 2 million of them actually have citizenship. But obviously now we've got Albanese opening the floodgates into the country at unprecedented levels. We've got immigration rates now that are 3 times the national record on a yearly basis in this kind of post-COVID era. Anti-immigration politics is coming back to the fore, and a new kind of identitarianism is becoming internationally popular because the reality of that there is this global replacement of the white race across the entire Western world is dawning on everyone. Whether you want to take whatever kind of reaction you want to take to it, it's gotten past the stage where people could just ignore it. It's now becoming just a reality of life that everyone has to accept, and now we have to make the debate is around the value judgments and the response. And today, though, traditionally white Australia was very much focused on economic issues, and there are some economic issues that are quite egregious, which are caused by immigration today. The speed in which they're bringing people in is obviously causing a housing crisis in Australia now. We're recording this 15th of July, 2023. Rents are flying up at record levels in Sydney and Melbourne. There's wage stagnation, even though we're having an inflation crisis, and it's an economic mess from the COVID recovery mixed with mass immigration. There's something like 1 million foreign students in Australia right now. So many Indians pouring in through student visas. taking all of these low-skilled jobs. Um, we've got the Chinese, buying up neighborhoods. We've got Indians buying up neighborhoods. White people moving into. There's less and less options within the cities for young white families. Birth rates are at an all-time low. We're in a very bad position, and it's become, as I said at the beginning, uh, in the minds of the Australian political elite and media establishment, you're an extremist if you're loyal to this idea of white Australia, if you have a racial identitarian worldview when it comes to politics.